Good morning, welcome to Yellow Door Urban Homestead. I am Asia and I'm an urban gardener growing in a small space in my backyard. So I did not realize how close I was to September the 1st. I was thinking that I had like 14 days at least. I do not. So today I'm going to start clearing out some of the things. I'm going to start with the basil. I'm going to make this a week-long situation because I'm not doing it all today. So I'm going to clean out the basil. Probably gonna clean out the marigolds. I'm gonna start fertilizing. I'm gonna put down some granulated fertilizer. I'm gonna fork the beds where the compaction is, throw in a little bit of compost just to kind of prep the soil for fall planting. So one of the things that I don't talk about a lot is like small space gardening problems. I don't really see the point in talking about it because my space is what I have. But if you are deciding to grow in a small space, one thing that you need to know is that if you plan to grow all year long, so 365 days a year, at the end of summer, you will have to make those tough decisions on what to pull out. Because at this point, all of my beds are almost full of things and I have to make the decision that like, I need to get ready. I need to start planting for fall, prepping the soil, all of that stuff. So today, because this bed is not really producing food, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it. So there's basil in this bed, there's nasturtiums in this bed, and then there's marigolds in the bed. And since it's not producing any actual food, I'm gonna go ahead and pull it and get the soil together. There are cantaloupe on the back, and there are 2 cantaloupe that I believe will ripen before the season ends. And so I'm gonna leave the cantaloupe, but I'm gonna pull all the things at the bottom. Also, I'm gonna keep the basil. I'm just going to pull it, but take it in the house and I'm going to dry it because I've been drinking basil tea. It is delicious. I drink it hot. I haven't had it cold, but it's a very delicious drink and I want all that I can get. And so I'm just snipping right at the end of it. I'm gonna leave the roots in the soil. Should have bought a basket. Huge. Marigolds are huge. Look at that thing. And I noticed that if it runs on the soil, it'll re-root. That's probably how these got so big. Gonna give the nasturtiums to the chickens. See right there? This was the end that I planted. This was on the ground and it just started to re-root. Pretty cool. Good to know. And so all of the plants like the marigold and the basil that was flowering, that'll go over into the compost pile. But right now, I'm gonna take the fork and just kind of push it through here a little bit and add some compost to the bed. And some granulated fertilizer. So I would not be forking this bed if I did not have the mole or the vole, or even it might have been the mice that was going through these beds, but I did have to walk on them quite a bit early in the season, and so I just want to loosen up the soil a little bit and aerate it. So if I didn't have those problems, I wouldn't be doing this. I would just lay a layer of compost on the top and let it work down into the soil. So the granulated fertilizer that I like to use is called Garden Tone. It's by Espoma. And I just throw this in the bed. At planting time, I'll use blood meal and bone meal in the hole. But yeah, so I have some of my homemade compost that I pull out of the compost pile. I am still not finished pulling that out of the compost. I gotta get on that. And I'm gonna work it down into like the first few inches of the soil. And now I'm just gonna throw in some Garden Tone and mix that in as well. I don't really measure, but there are of course measurements on the back if you choose to use this fertilizer. It's supposed to rain this evening, so it's a perfect time for me to be doing this. The granulated fertilizer will break down over time. This will feed the plants over a period of time. And that's what I do to get my beds ready for the next planting. If you've been here for a while, you know I tried planting out some Lacinato kale and another kale variety probably a month or so ago just to see what I could get. And so these kale plants are still alive, not looking their best, have been eaten up a little bit. I'm gonna move them over to the bed where the cherry tomatoes are so that I can go ahead and prep this space. I'm gonna go ahead and pull out this squash plant. It's not doing much of anything. I'm gonna leave the tomatoes because they're still growing. So to do this, I'm just gonna dig around the kale plant to try to get as much of the roots as I can. So that's what I have. And lucky for me, I guess now at this time of year, lucky for me, a lot of tomatoes died, so I could just go ahead and plant this right into a spot where there isn't a tomato. I'm gonna water it in really good, and I'm probably gonna give it some fish emulsion to get acclimated to its new space. Yeah, I didn't talk so terrible about this loofah that it was like, Lord, let me at least give her a flower. My loofah gave me a flower. I happened to look up. I ain't no loofahs on there, but I did get a flower. Woo! So before we get started this evening, I want you to see, this is what garden burnout looks like. Those plants have not been watered in probably 3 days. And so burnout at the end of summer for me looks like not really taking care of my plants. And so I just want to let everybody know, if you're experiencing burnout, it's not just you. It's not a bad thing. You've done a great job taking care of your garden all summer long. And if you're like me, where you have a very long growing season, I've been growing since April. It is now August. It's bound to happen. So don't feel bad about garden burnout. Lucky for me, peppers can dry out a little bit. And it seems like everything else is taking it okay. And so I'm not stressing too much. I'm about to pull this stuff out anyway. Today, we're gonna pull out the sunflowers. I really don't wanna pull out the sunflowers. The birds love the sunflowers. However, they look pretty bad, although they have new sunflowers on them. But before I do any of that, I have got to water these plants. Give me a few minutes. So you may have noticed that I watered the beds that I pulled all of the vegetables out, well, most of the vegetables out, and it's really just soil right now. I am watering those beds just like I water everything else, because in order for the granulated fertilizer to break down, it has to be wet. And so when I water everything else that's still growing, I'm still gonna water that as long as it is dry, so that the granulated fertilizer can still break down. So this is how far I've gotten. I have cleared out the bed here. There's only tomatoes left in the back. I took that tromboncino squash down. And over here, I've pulled everything out as well. Those squash I tried to plant to get a second crop of squash that did not work well. I have cut down the echinacea. All of the beets are gone, and we only have tomatoes left in this bed. A lot of these ripened over the week. I have a few left in here. And so by September 1st, those will be coming out too. But I still stand by me saying I'm going to check into planting more determinate tomatoes. So quick update on the seedlings. They are still looking good. Glad I caught them. Those are the ones that I showed you last week where I had to replant them. They're growing really good. This is calendula, and this is where I planted the calendula and dill together. But someone said that they transplant their dill, and so I'm gonna try it. And the Brussels sprouts looking better too. So I decided not to pull out the sunflowers because there was a pretty yellow finch, golden finch, whatever you want to call it, on there, and I don't have the heart to pull them out. So instead of pulling out my sunflowers tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and direct sow some seeds. I'm going to direct sow lettuce, some peas, my turnips, and my rutabagas tonight. So I direct sowed some beans right here a little while ago, and something, I'm assuming it was the grasshoppers, ate the tops off of them. It's not mice though. I just feel like I need to say that. And so I'm just gonna try some peas right here. There's beans on the other side that the grasshoppers did not eat. I'm gonna decide to scrap the beans because I have beans over on the other trellis. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to see if I can get a fall crop. These are cool season plants. So if they make it through our last bout of hot weather, because we're back up in the 90s now, I should get a small, probably, crop of peas for fall. And those were called Laxton Progress number 9 peas. I got them from M.I. Gardner. Not sure I've ever actually grown them before. I've planted them before, but they did not grow. Behind the peppers that's in the bags, I'm gonna go ahead and plant my turnips. And I'm gonna plant this whole front section with turnips because I do enjoy turnips. My turnips last year, they were early spring planted, but I'm gonna see if I can go ahead and get some in the fall too. So this whole front row is gonna be turnips. All I'm gonna do is make a little furrow in the soil here. Maybe about 2 inches apart. And I'm gonna drop the seeds down in there. Hopeful that the peppers will shade these seeds while it's still hot and give them a quick jump start, if you will. So turnip seeds are kind of small. I'm gonna drop them into the farrow, and then I'm gonna probably, more than likely, have to thin. Bugs are really out here. I don't know if you all can see them on camera or not, but they are out here. Mosquitoes. But thankfully, I have these wonderful arm sleeves, and I got a link down below. So on this side, I'm gonna do half of this front row as rutabaga and the other half as lettuce. And now I'm gonna water all of those in so that we can make sure they stay moist overnight. And now I will really have to come out here and make sure that I water, because when you are planting seeds direct sown and it is still pretty warm outside, you have to make sure that they stay moist. Also, you may have noticed that with the lettuce, I didn't dig a really deep furrow because lettuce doesn't need to be planted too deep. So I did the furrow and then I just kind of wiped the soil over top of it so that the plants aren't planted too deep. Before I sign off tonight, I want to say thank you to the person who sent me this. So I appreciate these bags, and I also appreciate the Dutch oven. I really am so excited to have that, and I cannot wait to get to use it. I am making tomato sauce this weekend, and I am going to use that Dutch oven. I really, really appreciate it. So thank you everyone for watching. If you like this video, don't forget to press like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to visit me over on Instagram at Miss MS Asia Spratley, where I post about the things going on in the garden every day. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.